Correspondent Jeffrey Sapp continues his conversation with Chad Robechaux about PTSD and other life issues.
I would spend like 10, 12 hours a day on those wrestling match training, and I didn't deal with the issue that I had, the panic attacks, the anger still, the shame. Like, I didn't deal with all those things, so they just built, while I had this fake facade of success kind of building. I was winning fights, I won a world title, I became 18-2. Professionally fighting on all these big televised shows, and all these people around me started to, it was like all these people telling me everything I wanted to hear. No one told me what I needed to hear, and I needed to get well. My family was a mess. My children were scared of me. My wife and I's marriage was completely dead, and it didn't take long for me to walk out of our marriage. I didn't even care. And a relationship with other women. We sold our home. We filed for divorce, moved in 2 separate apartments, and that was really like the rock bottom for me. Because at that time, my wife and I had 2 different reactions. My wife went into a church and started praying for our family, fighting for our family. She said she was so angry she didn't know how to pray, so she would just say, "God, let me see Chad the way you see Chad. Let me love him the way you love him. Let me forgive him the way you forgave him." So she was fighting for me when I had given up.
Absolutely.
And I was in this apartment, and when I got alone in that apartment was when I had that first realization that everyone I had blamed before, my father, the military for the way I got out, the fact that my wife always felt she didn't understand, like what I went through. Like, you don't understand what I went through. You don't know. And all these people that I blamed, I realized like it was me. Like, I was the common denominator. And that realization should have led me to make a change, but instead it led me to a point to where I decided, like, I'm the problem. I hurt all these people that love me. So if I remove myself from the situation, then they're going to be better off. And that was a decision that I think 20 plus veterans a day come to that hopelessness, to realize that you're the problem, and the world will be sad without you, but they'll be better off. And that's where I was, and I decided I was to take my life. I'd sit there alone, and you like sitting there with your firearm and having this kind of conversation with yourself. And what slowed the process, or maybe didn't give me the confidence or courage, whatever the factors were that stopped me from doing it, was I was alone, and I realized the persons that would find me was probably my children. And I had heard a statistic before that 1 in 3 children from a parent that commits suicide would do it as well. And I didn't even know where I heard it from, but it was going over in my mind, and so I was battling how I was gonna make it look like an accident, how to pull this off without my children finding me and being impacted. So that's what delayed me. And then my wife, during that time, this is about a 2-week period, she came to my apartment and she asked me a question that just radically changed my life. She asked me, and she was there for the divorce papers, to sign them. But she asked me how I could have been successful in the military. She's seen me become a reconnaissance Marine. She's seen me do all these deployment trainings and schools, crazy schools, and then the MMA fights, cutting weight and doing all the hard work to get ready for all the discipline it takes to do all that. She's like, how could you do all that, and when it comes to our family, you'll quit? Since then, and a lot's taken place.
A life-defining moment.
And one of the biggest things for me was the guy that stepped into my life, because what I realized in that moment was that I did want to change, but I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I knew I couldn't do it by myself, and I knew I couldn't do it with the people that I had surrounded myself with, all these enabling kind of people. And it's not any fault to them. I pushed the accountability out, so I take responsibility for that. But I knew I couldn't do it, and so I had to go to my wife and say, is there a man in this church you're going to? And this was nothing to do with a faith-based decision. I'm just like, is there a man in this church you're going to that could help me? And she introduced me to a man named Steve Toth. And I think it's important to note that Steve never served in the military. He wasn't a veteran at all, and he didn't even really know any veterans. The reason that's important is because a lot of veterans out there, they disqualify people to help them. You've never been where I've been. You don't understand. And this guy never served in the military at all. In fact, he was going to introduce me to this retired Navy SEAL who was a chaplain, and I met this guy Steve, and he had everything I needed to help me. And the greatest gift he had was he's got ADD. Like really bad. and the reason I say that was he just didn't have he doesn't have any patience at all. He's like really and he didn't let me manipulate him. I was extremely manipulative at the time, and could have said all the right things, and he didn't have the patience for it. I wrote like an operational order, a 5-paragraph order of how I was going to fix my life, and I met him at a Starbucks. First time I met him, I slid this paper over to him, and he didn't even look at it. He slid it right back to me, and he said, "You're going to fail, and you're going to end up right back where you are." And I said, I was like offended because he didn't even read all this work I put in this thing. And he's like, and he pointed to the paper. He's like, unless it has anything to do with God, you're going to end up right back where you are. And I'm not going to let you waste my time. And I'm not going to waste yours. And we have a saying at Mighty Oaks in our foundation: if what you're doing isn't working, then why not try something different? And I tried everything. I'd been on the pills, I did the counseling, I did the MMA and jiu-jitsu, and all those things didn't work, so it was time for me to try something different. So I trusted this man, and I surrendered my life to Christ. And beyond that decision, he mentored me for a whole year in biblical manhood. And what I discovered during that process was that all this time, the things that happened in my childhood, in Afghanistan, the friends I lost, in Iraq, like all these things that happened in my life, they didn't lead me to where I was. What led me to where I was the choices that I made. And I never lost control of that. And now I had not only the clarity to realize I had to take responsibility and choose differently moving forward, not let my past define my future, but I had the ability to have a set of principles to choose from. The truth is that there's 20 plus guys a day taking their lives of my brothers that were in the same spot every day, and the divorce rates were staggering. In some places like 80%. In some bases, and so when we started Mighty Oaks, it wasn't like, hey, wouldn't it be great if career move if we open a nonprofit and start helping veterans? It wasn't that at all. It was just I wanted to pay forward what the challenge my wife gave me, the mentorship that Steve gave me, and a second chance that God has for all of us, and to be who we were created to be. And I just wanted to pay that forward, and that's all this has been. In the last 6 years, it's been amazing to see so many people impacted by it, me included, because every time we run a program and have a session, I'm equally impacted and grow further from where I was. From that dark pit I was in, I continue to move forward because of the work that we get to do, and the whole DNA of Mighty Oaks has been to do just what I did. Take your story and use it to help someone else.